Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. So today I'm going to do the video that my Twitter poll found people wanted to do. Not by a ton because there's only like 7 people who voted, but whatever. I'm going to do Lex Arcana, which is a great little historical fiction game that if you've never heard of it, I'm hoping to introduce you to it and hope that you guys enjoy understanding a little more about it. This may not be as long of a video as some of my other ones because this game's not going to take as long to describe. It is newer. I believe it came out in like 2018, 2020, um, somewhere in that range. Uh, it is originally an Italian RPG, big shock, with a name like Lex Arcana. Um, it has since been translated in English. All the files are available on DriveThruRPG. I will get the DriveThruRPG for the Archon page, so if you guys want to go check this game out, you can go check it out. Um, it is a great game, um, wonderfully well developed, smart game. The basics of the game are you are a custos of the Cohors Auxilia Arcana, and you are sent out by the Emperor to the four corners of the world to study lore, investigate cults, and destroy supernatural creatures. That is what you do. Um, and it is set in 1229 Urbe Condita, which is the 13th century of Roman reign in an empire that never fell. So, in the 5th century CE, of course, the Western Empire falls. Gods and heroes are forgotten. The dream of the nation unifying the known world is dead. In Lex Arcana, the Empire never falls. So, that being said, it's a historical fantasy game set in alternate 5th century CE where magics exist. The Emperor still watches over 20 provinces and different people inhabit them. Rolling with the help of divinatory powers, he grants stability to a world threatened by supernatural phenomena and dark omens in this divergent timeline. It managed to steer away from the course of events which led to its historical lapse thanks to mastery of the arts of divination. By being able to see beyond the barriers of time, the Roman emperors have kept their enemies at bay for centuries outside the borders of the empire and within them. That's the basic, and I read that pretty much word for word off the Archon website, which I will also link to because I really like this website. It's a beautiful website. Um, the game itself is contained in one full core rulebook. Uh, Fairly simple setup. It is a great way to learn the game. I have a hard copy of it, actually, not just PDFs of this. And there are full roles in there. The world is set up to play. They do give you 12 pre-generated characters in there. And it gives you all the roles you need to play, advice for the demiurge, which is the GM. And then, of course, you have a full bestiary. It also uniquely does not just come with one adventure; it comes with two separate starter adventures to lead your custodes in. Um, and it literally covers the whole world, from Britain to Egypt to Italia. Um, there is everything there that you need. Um, Great part about this is they do have source books out right now for a bunch of different parts of the world. They have Egypt. They have I'm trying to remember Egypt, Rome, or Italia, and I think two more right now without looking in my collection. They have a couple of different ones. They have Britannia as well, and I thought about that. So there's tons of stuff in there. They have a couple of adventure books out for this. Um, the books themselves are absolutely glorious. I love the books themselves. They're physically beautiful books. They are chock full of information about the world. They really get into the nitty gritty of Roman society, of Roman lifestyle, of the political environments, uh, everything from how the roads work to the aqueduct systems to every part of Roman life is really well defined. And it's done very well historically. And then that's just how it works. Um, so what happens with this game is it's pretty simple. And here in a minute, I'm going to give you kind of the TLDW, and I'm going to give you my ratings on this game, which I don't normally do, but I am going to do it with this game. So Lex Arcana uses a very unique mechanical system in that it has attributes like strength. They're all named after Latin names too, which makes it very 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 cool. Everything is named after like a Latin name. Let's see if I can pull up a character sheet within my downloads. Sorry, I have to download it. I forgot to download the character sheet again. Okay, so you have what are called virtues, is what they call them, and then they're the typical attributes. You have coordinato, Acatorius, Ratio, Vigor, Vigor, Igninium, Sensibatalis. Um, I apologize if I butcher that because my Italian pronunciation is not very strong. um, and what they are is they are pretty much what you would come to expect from the characters from the game itself. From an RPG, you got coordination, rationality, constitution, which is vigor, ignium, which is like intelligence. Um, I'm not going to dive too deep into it. Something I'm trying to avoid doing from here on out. But when I do these videos, because I feel like I've been diving a little too deep in when just trying to explain the games and what they are. I may do a deep dive video on this game because this is actually a really, really good game. So, um, and then you have what are called per, perite, which they're all defined as of something. So you have de bello, de corpe, de magica, de natura, de scientia, and de societe. Um, of war, of the body, of science, of society. Those are your skills. Uh, Pretty simplistic. They're ranked, just like attributes. They're ranked. You're going to get a certain number of points during character creation. Again, if I go into it too deep, I'm going to feel like I'm swimming in an ocean. But you get points, and this is actually going to determine how you roll dice. And then you can also get specialties in those skills. So, like de bello, you get de bello, but you can also get specialties in swords and specialties in spear fighting and defense and all that kind of stuff. So, which add bonuses when you're rolling and everything else. Again, guys, I'm not going to get too deep into the system. I just want to give you guys the overview of the game and then let you guys explore for your own sake. Of course, this game has a hit point system, which is pretty simple. Um, if you ever get below half your hit points, you get wounded. It's really unique in that it tracks it. You don't get a ton of hit points either, so combat in this game can be super deadly. Um, so that's just all there is. Um, and then your combat is really, it's tracked very simplistically. The sheet does a great job of keeping track. They actually relayed this sheet out, which I really appreciate and I really like. And then, of course, on your sheet, as a character, you're going to have like a name. You get the province you come from, which impacts all kinds of things, like what languages you can know and things like that. What languages you know, the age, the sex, what office you are. So each of the custodes, there's different offices in the custodes. Um, and the custos offices are actually really, really, really good. Let me see if I can find them all real quick. There it is. There it is. Okay. Wrong one. Customs. There's character creation. I apologize, guys. I should have brought this up first. And just for the record, this this game actually comes. Just say it actually comes with some worksheets you can fill out as well when you're creating your character. So it's pretty neat. It's actually pretty neat. So there are different offices that you can fulfill as a member, uh, and try to find the offices here. There's offices. Okay, so here's the offices. You can be an augur, which is a diviner, however you want to say it. Be a diplomat, explorer, a fighter, a scholar, and each one of those has a primary pierte that you can do, a primary skill. If you ever have 15 in that skill when you're creating your character, you're required to take the office that skill is tied to. I mean, that's kind of simple. Um, so De Bello is fighter, De Magica is augur, the scientist, scholar. I mean, really, honestly, it's kind of pretty simple. Each of the offices also come with a talent that they can use in combat. Uh, and they do really cool things. Fighters can hit harder. Scholars can observe people better, things like that. Just give you an example of how one of these works. See if I can find one. Okay, yeah. So like the scholar, find the weak point of their opponent's defense and hide their own. So once per Tempest, once per round, you can re-roll, repeat a damage or protection roll. The scholar must keep the second roll even lower. Basically, also that's a cool part of the combat in this game is you actually roll protection rolls to defend against attacks. So really, really unique systematic part of it. Like I said, and then that's really the basics of the systematic part of the game. It is very much a thing, and then you get a deity based on what office you are. So each of them worship different deities. So like fighters worship Mars. I mean, that's just it's a pretty simplistic part of the game. Um, the experience is kind of interesting in that you get multipliers. You get multipliers during character creation that you get to assign to each of the categories. Um, each of the different what they call curriculum. So if you're a fighter and you want to learn Debello faster, you'll apply a higher multiplier to Debello than you will, say, De Societe. So pretty simplistic part of that game too. It's really neat. You also have what are called pietas points. Pietas points are your ability to call upon your god to take actions for you. Um, the gods actually do cool things in this game, which is unique. It's actually unique in that, for example, the augur he worships Apollophobos. By spending 6 pietas, an augur who has made a roll of Magica can use this invocation to roll the same dice combination again and add the results to the previous one. So each of the gods give you special powers. That costs you pietas. Pietas does come back on you. Uh, like, I mean, that's just part of it. And then, if you're a augur in particular, you're going to access to invocations and rituals. Um, and they do everything from like reading entrails to, just simply casting spells. So augurs do a lot of cool stuff. So that's the gist of how characters are built, what characters look like in this game. They're very much built around the idea of being very complete. I think would be the term I would use. Um, it uses a virtue plus parite plus expertise uh, system. So yeah. So what happens with this game to roll dice in this game, which is this is where it gets kind of fun and unique. You add up uh, your character skill level, uh, and once you have that skill level done, you must beat a difficulty number, which they call difficulty threshold or DT. So if you're ever looking on these books and see DT, that's what it stands for. The truly unique part is how players decide the combination. So you decide how big of a risk you want to take when you roll, and what happens is you are going to roll a number of dice that the sides of the dice equal to or can come under, but have to be um, at or under the rating and skill. So if you have a 12 on a skill, you can choose to roll any combination of there are certain dice that are not allowed, but any combination of dice that are allowed to allow you to do that. This does use some of the Xochi dice and some off-wall dice uh, for sure. Um, and what that'll do is what that'll look like is in order to choose the level of risk you're willing to take is you could swing big and say, well, I just want to roll a d12, which also gives you a better chance to fail because you're only rolling one die. But you can also succeed larger because you can roll a straight 12. Um, and then you could also roll, say, 3d4. Again, less risk because there's less risk of critical failure, but you may not be able to get as big of a number because the averages are less. Um, and you never roll more than 3 dice in this game, no matter what happens. You're always going to roll 3 dice. So that's a good point, a good part of that. And the DTs provided by the GM. So when you're in combat, everything is done by the demiurge. He hands out all the actual dice difficulties and everything else. It's like I said, it's pretty simplistic as far as. Let me get back up there. Trying to find there's a section in the book that tells you what dice are actually available to this game, and okay, dice points, yada yada yada. I'm trying to find it again. I'm sorry, guys. Said Yeah, I don't want to do. I'm sorry, guys. I should look this up first here because I forgot to do that. Okay, here it is. So, Lex Arcana employs classic polyhedral sets, yada yada. So you're going to have a 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 20. And then there are minor specialized game stores. They reference as D3s and D5s when specialized are required. Some to use a D6 or D10 respectively and have the result. So basically, you can use anything from a you can roll D3, D4, D6, D or D3, D4, D5, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20, um, and any combination up to three of them. So it's pretty simplistic. Um, and then to critically succeed, if all the dice come up with the highest possible score on the dice, you roll the same dice again, adding the result to the first. And it keeps going. It just compounds. If you're lucky enough to do it multiple times in a row, you can just keep going. That's called the fate roll. Uh, that's just how it works. Um, it applies to all rolls made by the custodians, includes damage protection rolls. Um, and if you're, as long as you have highest more than one. So basically, the gods ignore you if you have no pietas, which just makes sense. And then, like I said, dice points are pretty simple. Um, the example they give here is a Magica score of 8 does not compound only to a D8, but has 8 dice points. And a Corporate rating of 12 does not compound correspond to just 2d6, but rather 12 dice points. Like I said, so it's going to come down to the player how he rolls. In the case of that day Magica, you could roll 2d4, you could roll a d3 and a d5, you could roll, whatever you want in any three combination to roll that roll to try to beat the thresholds. I mean, that's how simple it is. So, and like I said, it's pretty simplistic. Mechanically, it's very simplistic. It takes a little bit to get used to. Um, so, um, and here's the way it kind of works: is uh, your your perite, your skills are going to be uh, key to this game. They are derived from your attributes. So when you're creating your character, that's having good attributes still matters because they derive into your skills, and then you get skill ranking based on how much experience you spend on it eventually. Difficulty threshold. Um, you can either roll it or set it. It's really, honestly, it's better just to set it. There's difficulty level table in the book to give you kind of examples. So like an easy task would be 3, an extreme task would be an 18 difficulty, and everything in between. The normal difficulty should be about 6 to 10. Should be your DT threshold. So your actual threshold. Then you make your roll. If it's greater than the DT, you succeed. Uh, if there's an opposing action in this game, you know, you roll against each other. Whoever has the highest wins. If there's a tie, uh, you are going to repeat. And close combat, is always opposed in this game. So, and then there's degrees of success. So, in this game as well. So success can be better or less depending on what you've done. And some things actually require degrees of success to trigger certain abilities and things, or certain abilities will trigger new degrees of success. So for every 3 points, pretty much you have, it's a degree of success up to 7 or more, which makes it an exceptional success. Pretty simplistic. And really, guys, that is the basics of the game right there. Like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into the actual combat section and everything else. Just know that when you swing a sword, people get to defend against it. It is very simplistic. Multiple opponents against you has their own set of rules. Um, there's rules for pretty much everything in here. And like I said, it's all contained in that one core book, which makes it a lot better and a lot simpler. I really enjoy the fact that this game is kind of really is written the way it is. It is very easy to read. It's very easy to follow. Like I said, it does take a little bit to get used to that dice rolling mechanic, the idea of having free flowing dice. Because, by the way, you don't set that when you create the character or anything, you set that when you roll. So two rolls of the same skill in a 5 minute window could be two totally different dice setups, depending on, like I said, how much you're willing to risk. So, uh, and that's just how it works. Um, and it's, like I said, it's just a great game. Lex Arcana is a criminally underrated game, in my opinion. So it is very much worth checking out. Like I said, it's made by Archeron Games, newer game, which is a surprise for me because most of my games I do are a lot older. But if you're looking for a really fun alternate history game, or you love the Roman Empire, uh, this is the game that'll scratch your itch. I promise. It is worth every second. Like I said, guys, I'm going to drop the links to Archon's webpage and to the Drive Through RPG for Archon, so you can look up the PDFs. The hard copies are also available on Amazon. I'm not going to link to that anyway. You can look them up on Amazon. Um, and several other web stores do carry this game, so it is relatively easy to get your hands on. Hopefully this has been enlightening. Hope you guys found something that you like about this. And as always, guys, we do hope you have fun, and we do hope to see you guys around the game table at some time.